When someone hates you deeply, it's easy to internalize that pain and ask, what did I do wrong? The natural reaction is to assume you're the problem, to question your worth, your choices, or your character. But there are moments in life when hatred goes beyond human disagreement or conflict. It becomes a symptom of something unseen, something spiritual. This kind of hate carries a weight that feels heavier than mere words or actions. It strikes at your spirit, not just your reputation. And in those moments, it's crucial to recognize a deeper reality. The presence of deep hatred can be spiritual sign. Hatred of this kind rarely begins with logic. It's not about a misunderstood conversation or a minor offense. It's something deeper, colder, and more relentless. When someone hates you without a clear cause, when the intensity of their contempt feels disproportionate, irrational, or even obsessive, you're not just dealing with emotion. You're confronting a spiritual force that's often beyond your control. And instead of sinking into confusion or despair, you must ask a better question. What is this hate responding to within me? There are times when people hate not because of who you are, but because of what you carry. You may carry peace into a world of inner chaos. You may carry truth into a place that thrives on illusion. You may carry light into darkness, and it's that light, silent, pure, unshaken, that provokes fury. Hate is often a reaction to conviction, not crime. It doesn't always mean you've failed. Sometimes it means you've refused to conform. And when your presence alone causes agitation, that's not always a sign that you need to retreat. It may be the clearest indication that you're walking in something sacred. Spiritual resistance often disguises itself in human faces. It uses voices, attitudes, and emotions to deliver its message. But the source is not merely flesh and blood. When hatred grows roots that seem too deep, when someone's animosity is fueled by something they can't even articulate, it may be because they're confronting something in you that challenges their spiritual condition. In a world where people protect their illusions and justify their brokenness, truth, even if unspoken, can feel like an assault. This is why hatred should not always be feared. Though painful, it can serve as confirmation. It can be a mirror reflecting not your flaws, but your purpose. The very thing that others despise in you may be the mark of your calling. This doesn't mean you're superior. It means you're positioned. You have been placed in alignment with something that stirs the unseen. And when that happens, resistance is inevitable. You didn't ask for the battle, but your existence on that path invites it. Many are tempted to compromise under the pressure of hatred. They shrink to avoid offense. They dim their light to be accepted. But spiritual clarity demands courage. It asks you to stay the course, even when misunderstood, even when attacked. The pressure you feel is not a sign to change direction. It's a sign that your direction matters. Not everyone will see it. Not everyone will like it. And yes, some will hate you for it. But that hatred is not the end of your story. It's the evidence that your story carries power. In the quiet moments when you feel the weight of being hated for no just cause, remember this: you are not alone, and you are not lost. The pain is real, but so is the purpose. You are being seen not just by those who hate you, but by the one who called you. And their rejection does not undo his affirmation. So walk forward, stand firm, let the hate reveal what words cannot. You carry something eternal, and that is something no amount of human contempt can ever erase. Hatred, especially when it's intense and unprovoked, can easily feel personal. It stings in a way that makes you want to respond, to explain yourself, or to retaliate. But the truth is, it often has very little to do with you as a person and much more to do with what your life represents. When someone hates you deeply, it's not always about your actions. It's about your presence. You can be kind, respectful, even silent, and still provoke animosity. This is because spiritual realities stir something in people that they can't always name or understand. Sometimes your mere existence becomes a disruption to theirs. People may not say it out loud, but often the discomfort they feel when they are around you has little to do with anything you've done wrong. It has to do with a spiritual dissonance. You might be walking in peace, and that peace feels like a rebuke to someone who is tormented. You might be pursuing truth, and that pursuit exposes someone else's deception. You might have broken free from cycles they still cling to, and your freedom reminds them that they're still bound. Without a word, your life becomes a statement they don't want to hear, and rather than confront their own discomfort, they choose to project it onto you. This is why trying to win over everyone is a spiritual distraction. You were never meant to be acceptable to all people. Light doesn't blend with darkness, it exposes it. The exposure will often be met with resentment. But if you live only to avoid that response, you'll end up hiding the very qualities that make your life meaningful. It's a painful truth, but a necessary one. The hatred of others can be a response to your alignment with values and convictions they have rejected. You're not hated because you're evil. You may be hated because you remind them of what they've tried to forget. So before you absorb the hate as a verdict on your worth, consider this. It might not be personal at all. It might be spiritual. And that changes everything. There is something unsettling about light to those who have grown comfortable in the dark. It doesn't have to make a sound. It doesn't have to speak a word. Its presence alone is enough to disturb what's been hidden. In the same way, when your life begins to reflect clarity, truth, or spiritual depth, it can provoke discomfort in those who have avoided those very things. The issue is not that you're shining too brightly. It's that the darkness around you has been tolerated for too long. When someone hates you deeply, it may not be because of who you are, but because of what you reveal without trying. This is one of the most overlooked spiritual principles light exposes. It doesn't accuse, it simply reveals. For many people, that revelation is intolerable. The light you carry may stir up shame, guilt, or fear in someone else, not because you condemned them, but because they are reminded of their own inner conflict. You walk into the room, and the atmosphere shifts, not because you're trying to dominate or preach, but because you carry something they have tried to silence within themselves. And rather than confronting that internal tension, they direct their discomfort towards you. Hatred becomes a form of resistance. It's not always rooted in logic or reason. It often has no clear cause or explanation. That's because it's not really about the surface. It's about the spiritual disruption taking place underneath. The light in you exposes the darkness in them, and that exposure breeds resentment. You may never be told the real reason someone despises you, but the reaction itself is a message. It says you've touched something deeper than disagreement. You've touched something sacred. Instead of shrinking back, this is the moment to recognize what's happening. You are not the source of the disturbance. You are the signal. You didn't create the tension, but your presence is highlighting it. And that is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to stand in. Because where light shines, darkness is forced to decide, either flee or fight. When it chooses to fight, you know exactly what you're dealing with. One of the most misunderstood signs of spiritual growth is resistance. Many believe that if they're on the right path, everything should feel peaceful, easy, and universally accepted. But the opposite is often true. When you are hated without cause, when opposition rises without warning, it may be the clearest indication that you are moving in the right direction. Hatred, especially when it's unjust and unrelenting, can be a divine confirmation that your life is aligning with a higher calling. The more you walk in truth, the more you will disturb the lies. The more you walk in purpose, the more you will threaten those who have settled for comfort. When someone hates you deeply, it can serve as evidence, not of your failure, but of your clarity. Hatred can be a reaction to the authority you've been given, the spiritual ground you've claimed, or the transformation you've undergone. Some people are not reacting to you. They're reacting to the light you now carry. They remember who you used to be, and your growth reminds them that change is possible, and that, more than anything, challenges their excuses. So they turn discomfort into resentment and resentment into hatred. But don't misread the message. The resistance you face is not a sign to retreat. It's a sign you've touched something eternal. We often want confirmation to come in the form of applause or validation. But in the spiritual realm, confirmation often comes through fire. You are confirmed not just by who celebrates you, but by what resists you. The fact that darkness pushes back means you've invaded its territory. The fact that hatred rises up means your influence has been felt. You are not just moving, you're making impact. And impact always provokes reaction. So when the hate feels personal, step back and ask yourself, what part of your life is exposing the truth? What part of your journey is making someone else uncomfortable? Don't let the reaction distract you from your direction. Let it confirm it. Because if you weren't walking in something real, the resistance wouldn't be this strong. It's easy to feel isolated when hatred comes against you, especially when it feels intense and unprovoked. But it's important to understand that this is not a new experience. You are not the first to walk this road. You certainly won't be the last. Throughout history, truth has always been hated before it was honored. Those who stood for righteousness, for conviction, for light, they were rarely embraced in the moment. Instead, they were rejected, misunderstood, persecuted, even killed. Why? Because the world has always had a problem with what it cannot control, and truth can never be manipulated. When someone hates you for walking in truth, you are standing in a long and sacred tradition. This world doesn't hate lies, it tolerates them. It doesn't hate compromise, it rewards it. But truth, it exposes, it challenges, and it disrupts. And because of that, it is often met with hostility, even when it's spoken in love, even when it's lived quietly, even when it's never spoken at all, but simply radiates through the way you carry yourself. Hatred has always found its way toward those who choose to live by a different standard. The world rejected truth long before it rejected you. So when you experience that rejection, recognize that you are in good company. It means you're walking a path that has always been narrow, always been difficult, and always been right. There's a strange comfort in knowing this, that the hate you feel is not new, that others, far greater and more faithful, have faced it too. They didn't bend, and neither should you. Let their endurance be your encouragement. Let their resolve remind you that hate is not the end of the story. It never has been. In every generation, truth has been met with resistance, but in time, it prevails. If the world turns against you for walking in integrity and love and purpose, you're not losing your way, you're finding it. And every hateful word, every unjust attack only proves how powerful your presence really is. Most people only pay attention to what they can see, hear, and touch. But some of the most important battles in life are invisible. They happen in the unseen realms, within the mind, within the heart, and within the spirit. When someone hates you deeply, what you're experiencing may not originate in the natural world at all. The intensity, the irrationality, the persistence of that hatred often reveals that a deeper spiritual conflict is taking place beneath the surface. And if you only fight it on a human level, you'll always be misdirected. You'll try to explain yourself, justify yourself, or defend yourself against a force that isn't actually interested in resolution. Because it's not about the situation, it's about the spirit behind it. There are invisible dynamics at play when you begin to walk in truth. You begin to disturb territories you can't see. You shift spiritual atmospheres you didn't even know existed. And those shifts often stir up resistance, not just from people, but from the unseen influences working through them. This is why some people hate you and don't know why. This is why you can feel tension in a room without a word being spoken. The spiritual realm is not passive. It responds to presence, to authority, to alignment with divine purpose. And when you step into that alignment, you become a target for forces that oppose it. Understanding this changes how you respond. Instead of fighting back with bitterness or frustration, you begin to see the situation for what it truly is, a sign that you've stepped into something that matters. You stop wasting energy trying to be liked or understood by those who are spiritually agitated by your presence. you begin to stand not in pride but in awareness. Because now you know what's really happening. You're not hated because of who you are in the natural. You're hated because of what you represent in the spiritual. And the moment you realize that, you stop reacting with fear. You start walking with authority. The battle may be invisible, but the victory begins with clarity. There's something sacred and often painful about carrying a presence that disturbs what is unclean. You may not even realize the weight you carry until others begin to recoil from it. You walk into a room, and without saying a word, something shifts. The atmosphere gets heavier. The energy becomes tense. Not because you are being confrontational, but because what is within you is awakening something in those around you. That unsettling tension is not always a reflection of conflict between people. It can be a collision between spiritual realities. When someone hates you deeply, it could be that the spirit within them cannot stand what's inside you. Your peace can be unsettling to someone tormented by inner chaos. Your clarity can feel offensive to someone living in confusion. Your spiritual discipline can feel like judgment to someone consumed by compromise. The hate directed at you may not be about your actions. It may be about your essence. It may be that the purity of your intentions, your pursuit of truth, or even your silence is exposing spiritual pollution they have worked hard to ignore. This isn't always conscious. Most people won't recognize the spiritual agitation they feel. All they know is that they're uncomfortable around you, and instead of confronting their discomfort, they place the blame on you. This is why you cannot take hatred at face value. You must look deeper. The spirit within you carries light, and light does more than illuminate. It provokes. Darkness cannot remain neutral when light enters the space. It must respond. And that response is often aggression, resistance, or deep resentment. But don't let this discourage you. Let it remind you of the power you carry. You're not provoking hatred because you're wrong. You're provoking it because you're right. Not self-righteous, but spiritually aligned. When your presence alone creates spiritual agitation, remember this: you were not designed to blend in. You were made to confront darkness by simply being who you are. And if that presence stirs something unclean, it's because light has entered the room, and darkness can't pretend it's not there anymore. One of the most difficult truths to accept is that people may hate you not because of anything you've done, but because of what you reflect back to them. You can become a mirror that reveals what someone is trying to avoid within themselves. Without intending to, your life highlights their compromises, their regrets, or their refusal to grow. You become a living reminder of the truth they've buried, of the potential they've ignored, or of the freedom they've chosen not to pursue. That reflection can be painful to them, and rather than confront it, they aim their frustration at you. When you walk in integrity, when you rise out of the places where others have chosen to stay, it challenges the narrative they've told themselves. You reflect what's possible, and that possibility disrupts their comfort. If you've forgiven when they chose bitterness, if you've grown when they remain stagnant, if you've healed when they've chosen to stay wounded, then your progress feels like an indictment of their complacency. But it's not condemnation. You're not judging them. You're simply being who you were called to be. Still, to those who are not ready to face truth, that reflection feels like judgment, and hate becomes a way to silence the mirror. This is why hatred can be so fierce and so confusing. Because you may think you're just living your life, minding your business, staying in your lane. But to someone else, you are a threat, not because you attack them, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your joy confronts their despair. Your obedience challenges their rebellion. Your freedom reminds them of the chains they've learned to live with. And when people aren't ready to deal with those inner truths, they aim their pain outward. You are not the problem. You are the reminder. You are the evidence that change is possible, that healing is available, that truth still exists. And for some, that is intolerable. So when the hate comes, understand this: you didn't provoke it by doing something wrong. You provoked it by being a reflection of something right. When hatred comes against you, the greatest danger is not the attack itself. It's what that attack can awaken in your own heart. Bitterness is a slow and silent enemy. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It tells you that you're justified in hardening your heart, that you have every right to hate back, that shutting down is safer than staying soft. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to reflect the very thing that wounded you. The trap of hatred isn't just in what's done to you, it's in what it tries to do through you. The spiritual purpose behind hate is not only to discourage you, but to transform you into something you're not. Hatred seeks to distort your identity, to drag you out of alignment with your values, to make you fight on the wrong battlefield. If you start retaliating with anger, slander, or revenge, you've lost more than the relationship. You've lost spiritual ground. Holding on to love, forgiveness, and peace in the face of hatred isn't weakness, it's power. It's a declaration that your spirit will not be ruled by external hostility. You rise above, not because they deserve it, but because you were never created to dwell in darkness. Guarding your heart is not passive, it's an act of war. It means rejecting the invitation to become bitter. It means refusing to replay their words, their actions, their insults, until your soul becomes poisoned. It means choosing to forgive, not to excuse them, but to free yourself. Because you cannot walk in your full authority if your heart is entangled in resentment. Bitterness is a weight that slows you down. Hatred is a fire that burns your own hands. You must choose to protect your peace, to respond in grace even when it hurts. This doesn't mean letting others walk all over you. It means refusing to let hate redefine you. You cannot control how others act, but you can control what spirit governs your response. And when you respond with love in the face of hatred, you silence the enemy that tried to speak through them. That is victory on a level many never reach. When someone hates you deeply, it's not just a matter of pain. It becomes a test of who you truly are, what you believe, and how grounded your identity really is. Hatred doesn't just come to hurt you, it comes to reveal you. It asks a silent question. Will you remain rooted, or will you be shaken? Will you still walk in purpose when love is withheld? Will you still stand for truth when the cost is rejection? This is the crossroads where many fall, because it's not easy to keep your heart pure when arrows are flying. It's not easy to keep walking when people are waiting for you to stumble, but understand this: hate doesn't come against the ordinary. It comes against the call. And if hatred has found you, you must ask yourself why. Could it be that the enemy recognizes something about your life that even you have yet to fully understand? Could it be that the storm rising around you is proof of the strength rising within you? When you are called to something significant, you will face significant resistance. That resistance isn't the end. It's preparation. It's pressure applied to see if your character can carry your calling. Every attack, every insult, every betrayal is asking, will you continue? And your answer must be more than emotional. It must be spiritual. Because your endurance isn't just about survival, it's about becoming. Every time you choose not to quit, not to retaliate, not to compromise, you pass the test. And with every test passed, you are being refined. Hatred will try to harden you, but purpose calls you to remain soft. Not weak, soft enough to hear, strong enough to stand. This is the refining fire. This is the proving ground. You don't need everyone's approval to fulfill your assignment. You don't need their applause to validate your steps. All you need is the courage to keep going, even when love is withheld and hate is loud. That's how purpose is forged. That's how leaders are made. That's how destiny is fulfilled. When hatred comes your way, it is more important than ever to stay rooted in truth and secure in your identity. One of the enemy's primary goals is to make you question who you are. If he can't stop your calling, he'll try to confuse your perception of it. He'll use hatred, rejection, and slander as tools to shake your confidence, to twist your self-image, and to make you wonder if you've somehow lost your way. But this is precisely when you must dig deeper into the truth of who you are. Not who people say you are, not how they treat you, but who you are at the core, in spirit, in purpose, in calling. When hatred surrounds you, it becomes a spiritual necessity to remember what you carry. The approval of others is never the foundation of your identity. It can feel good, yes, but it's not your anchor. Your anchor must be something unshakable, something eternal. If your sense of worth is rooted in human acceptance, then human rejection will destroy you. But if your identity is rooted in truth, unchanging divine truth, then no hatred, no accusation, and no campaign of lies will be able to unseat you from your purpose. You remain immovable, not because of pride, but because of clarity. This is why knowing the truth is essential. Not just facts, but truth about who you are and whose you are. Because when lies come against you, and they will, you must already be fortified. You cannot afford to start searching for affirmation after the attack has begun. You must already be standing in it. You must be so rooted in truth that no amount of hatred can uproot your peace. People may try to redefine you, distort your image, or label you according to their pain, but none of that matters if you refuse to accept it. Hold your ground. Let truth define you, not opinions. Let purpose secure you, not popularity. When you stand firm in who you are, hatred loses its power. It cannot move what is anchored. It cannot bend what is already bowed to something greater. One of the most liberating revelations you can have is this: hatred cannot stop you. It may sting. It may delay you. It may even isolate you for a season, but it cannot stop a person who is truly walking in purpose. When your life is anchored in something eternal, the opposition around you becomes irrelevant. People can lie about you. They can turn their backs on you. They can try to discredit you or discourage you, but what they can never do is dismantle what God has already established within you. Your purpose is not in their hands. It never was. You weren't called by public opinion. You weren't appointed by popularity. And so you cannot be destroyed by hatred. The mission inside of you is stronger than the storm outside of you. When you are walking in alignment with what is true and lasting, the weapons formed against you may rise, but they will not prosper. The spiritual authority you carry does not retreat when confronted. It advances with quiet confidence, knowing that no amount of resistance can undo what has already been sealed in heaven. That is the power of walking in purpose. It doesn't rely on external peace. It creates internal certainty. Don't underestimate the value of your endurance. Every step you take forward in the face of hate is a step deeper into destiny. What was meant to intimidate you ends up strengthening you. What was designed to stop you becomes the very pressure that forges your focus. Hate, as loud and aggressive as it can be, eventually wears out. But purpose, that divine sense of direction, is renewable. It doesn't weaken with time. It deepens. So instead of shrinking under the weight of hate, stand up taller under the weight of your calling. Let it lift you, not crush you. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to respond to every attack. Just keep walking. Let your consistency speak where your words are no longer welcome. Let your fruit speak where your name is dragged. Because in the end, the person who walks in purpose will always outlast the one who walks in hate. When you face deep hatred, it can be tempting to lower yourself to the level of the attack, to try and fight in the dirt, to prove yourself to people who have no intention of seeing the truth, to waste your energy chasing validation in places where your presence was never meant to be accepted. But you weren't created for that. You were made for higher things. You were made to rise above, not out of pride, not to feel superior, but because your assignment demands a higher altitude. And not everyone can follow you there. Not everyone will understand. Some will hate you precisely because you chose to rise. The hatred you face is not your end. It's a signal, a signpost that your life carries weight in the unseen realm, that your steps are not meaningless, that your presence disrupts darkness and unsettles mediocrity, that your calling is not just an idea, it's a reality that the enemy is desperate to oppose. So don't let hatred shrink you. Let it refine you. Let it remind you of your mission. Let it push you closer to the one who sent you. Because when hate tries to break you, it only reveals how unbreakable you've become. Your response is where power lives. Choose to rise. Rise in grace. Rise in silence when words would only stir more chaos. Rise in wisdom when you're provoked. Rise in courage when fear knocks at the door. Rise in love, not because it's easy, but because it's eternal. The higher you go, the clearer the view, and the smaller the noise below becomes. Let your elevation become your answer. Let your endurance become your testimony. This world may never celebrate your spirit, your discipline, or your truth, but heaven sees it all. And that is enough. Keep going. Keep shining. Keep walking, not to be accepted, but because you know who you are. Hatred has no power over a soul that's anchored in eternity. So rise, not to escape the storm, but to walk above it. That's where you were always meant to be.